Molina's full name is Adrian H. Molina, and Molina is an artist, an educator, a futurist, a consultant, and a human bridge. He has 20 years of experience as a community educator and has been teaching at the university level for 15 years. Adrian has 10 years of experience in the nonprofit sector in the areas of community development, capacity building and power building, cross-cultural organizing, health equity, youth engagement, creative development, youth access to the arts, and culturally relevant education. Also known as Molina Speaks, he is an award-winning artist, including the honor of Westward Mastermind in 2018. In this Creative Mornings talk, Molina is going to take us on a journey of the creative endeavor. And he presents us with this idea that we were born to create, and that creativity is in fact our first language. I love that sentiment. It's our first language. It's through the embrace of our artistic selves that we have the most potential to unlock our unique purpose on this planet. Unmute yourselves, and RJ, unmute everybody. Let's give Molina a huge welcome. Hey, Adrian.
Yeah, I had one.
For this time, the root to the heart to the crown by design. I align, natural time. Cycle of the moon, serpent plume, sand dune, sunshine, check your view. Black for the west, where the thunder sends rain. White for the north, for the cleansing wind. Red for the east, where the morning star lives. Yellow for the south, for the power to grow through many snow, many sun. Universal one, beat through the four corners. Ancient drum, 4 quarters of space, 10 dimensions of time. Every rhyme I design to code to your spine. True. We were chosen for this time, the root to the heart to the crown by design. I align, natural time, cycle of the moon, serpent plume, sand dune, sunshine, check your view. My purpose is to unite the human spirit through the radical imagination. Creativity is the information superhighway to the soul. So the original intention of this talk and conversation was finding purpose through the radical imagination. And we are going to stick with that theme, and yet it is a new world. It is a profoundly different world than what we were experiencing a month ago, 2 months ago, maybe even a week ago. So within the focus on the radical imagination, we're going to talk about finding purpose in a new, uncertain, and suspicious world. What role does creativity play in that? What role does art play in that? So it is a profoundly different world. For many people, it is a world now driven by fear, even more so than what we were experiencing prior. It is a world filled with uncertainty, with suspicion, where anybody can have the virus, where any cough, any sneeze, even in this allergy season, can give you pause, can make people look at you like, maybe you have the plague. It is a world filled with suspicion, conspiracy theories, understandable caution, frustration, but also beautiful moments of joy, of love, of compassion, camaraderie, people doing anything and everything they can to help other folks, And for those of us who are parents, it's been a really beautiful time to be able to really root down and hone into that relationship, with the child. I have a 16-year-old. I've been teaching him to cook, which has been a lot of fun. And just getting time to really get closer to him, at an age in which he was, just starting to distance himself, from his parents, really sink into relationships with friends, understandably, but also disappearing into the world of Snapchat, and starting to drive and all of that. And I was really excited for him, still am. He's a sophomore in high school. But everything's been disrupted, including for him. And I find his presence and intentionality, it's like tenfold to what it was prior. He's always been a good kid, beautiful kid. Love my son with all my heart. And this particular period, just his attention to detail, the conversations that we have, him just wanting to be with me, cook with me, have conversations, put his hands in dirt and soil, repotting plants, doing little 15-minute intensive exercise routines together in the living room, all those sorts of things. And then with my daughter, who is 4, well, actually, she just turned 5. Just turned 5 on April 3rd. Just getting to spend a lot of time with her, and the challenge of having to get work done, and having to stay productive within this time and honor my commitments, while also just trying to really get present and appreciate the gift of time. So, last month, I performed at Summit Music Hall downtown with my band, Pink Hawks, led by Yuzo Nieto. We opened for the Antibales, and we were performing for like 500 people. We had shows lined up at Rhinoceropolis, Ophelia's. We were negotiating summer shows to open for big name bands that we love at the Levitt Pavilion. I had a variety of arts residencies organized and set up in Denver, throughout the state of Colorado. I was ready to go down to Trinidad and participate in the poetry festival there. And my father has just moved to Trinidad. He retired there. So I was really excited for that to happen. I had a cultural and creative adventure plan to New Mexico. I was going to drop in on my Meow Wolf friends there in Santa Fe, and make my way down to Las Cruces for a Rage Against the Machine concert. So, everything was beautiful in this creative life, in which many years ago, I realized, my purpose was not to be famous. Not to be rich, not to be well known. And I went through a series of creative processes to essentially kill my ego, or to try to master it, and to just really appreciate the opportunity that I have on a small scale to impact people in a major way, in classrooms, on stages, as a spoken word poet, as a lyricist, as an artist, as an arts educator. And that the power of creativity, it's not about the likes. It's not about how many people are following you, or how many people are listening to your music, or how much your art sells for. It's like, if there are 5 people there, you perform for those 5 people as though there were 5,000 people. If you have an opportunity to speak to 10 people, you act like it's 10,000 people. If you're in a classroom with elementary school students, that's as real and as big as performing on stage with 500 people at Summit Music Hall, right? If you have an opportunity to engage with young folks who are incarcerated, or adults who are incarcerated, who need those services, whose eyes light up, whose hearts thump a little bit harder, with passion. And you could feel it when you walk into a correctional facility and work with folks who often don't get visitors, and who are struggling to keep hope, in the system that over incarcerates folks. Like, that's the art. That's the real deal, as much as performing in these venues with the bright lights and the alcohol sales that are driven by the money. I'd really settled into that passion and that power of just being present in my art, and thriving off of being present in person. I've been told that I market myself well, or that I use media well, or that I'm good at social media, but I don't feel that way. I actually genuinely, on many levels, despise social media. And I have to kind of check myself on that, because social media and technology have given me so many opportunities as an entrepreneur, as a small public figure, as a performance artist. It's given me an opportunity to make a living off of my art, and sharing my art, and extracting art out of other people, so I have to be careful with that. But I feel that the most genuine interactions happen in person. The power, the energy that is translated between people. And I've been flirting with leaving social media for a long time, and I finally decided that I was going to do it. So I had a reading with Suspect Press at Mutiny Cafe on South Broadway here in Denver, early March. And I've been telling friends, I've been telling my kids, I've been telling people I'm close to, like, I'm going to leave social media on summer solstice. I just started saying it out loud. And I started saying it in public performances just to affirm, like, I just want to be present with the people in physical space. I don't care about my avatars. I don't care about my followings on social media. I'm just finally ready to leave it all. And I started saying that out loud. So there were all these things in motion, there were all these plans, and everything got upended. I moved into a new home shortly before all this happened. So building a new world as the broader world is kind of crumbling in some regards. Plans have been upended, realities have been reconstructed. We are in flux. We are in a position and a period of deep introspection. And it's happening in somewhat of a gentle way, not to dismiss on any level the death, the sickness, the havoc that is being experienced by many people economically, people's lives being turned upside down. And yet things could be much worse, for as deep of a crisis as we're in this world. When we imagine water shortages on a massive scale, we imagine the pole shifting and, energy being blacked out, brownouts everywhere. If we imagine, the global water system being polluted or poisoned to a point where we can't sustain ourselves, like the list goes on and on. Nuclear war, a comet hitting the Earth. So not to minimize the pain that a lot of people are feeling in any way, but this is a moment in which we're being asked to slow down, in which we're being asked to reconsider everything, all of our systems, our ways of being, our personal routines, the way that we interact with each other in society, our public values, our political values, our economic values, and the worth of human life on this planet. And it's not happening in a particular nation, or a particular province where everybody else can ignore it. We're being forced to face this and to sit with this together and to be in a sense of deep introspection collectively, as a global population. So how do we find purpose in a disrupted world? How do we find purpose in an uncertain world? Holes have been opened up within the collective reality and within our individual realities. There was no return to old normals. A lot of people are just kind of waiting for, like, when can we just get back to like what it was? When can we get back to the way things were? And there's small things that I look forward to. I want to be able to hit up a taqueria and eat some tacos with my friends. I want to be able to walk into Pablo's Coffee and pick up a fresh Americano, or a mocha. I want to be able to hit up the burrito stand, I can't wait to get back into collective music and art making spaces. And at the same time, like, public space has changed forever. And I don't believe that we're going to sit in this place of fear and distance and suspicion, eventually, whether it's in the summer or in the fall, or next year, or 18 months from now, whatever the projections may be, there are going to be some new norms. But what we know of the political system, the economic system, the way we engage with each other socially, the way this is all impacting culture, it's a new world. It's a new time, and there will be new norms. And we get to determine what those new norms are, as citizens, as bosses, as workers, as supervisors, as those who are supervised, how we want to relate technology to our physical lives, what kind of space we're going to demand for ourselves, time for ourselves, for our loved ones, for our families. What do we want public space to look like when we return? We have an opportunity in this resetting to reemerge when it is time and to do things entirely differently. And that's going to take a lot of courage. It's going to take a lot of imagination, but we're here for that reason. This morning, everybody gathering here looking for some kind of purpose, some kind of silver lining, some kind of inspiration, some kind of connection to each other. wanting to feel that collective purpose, trying to settle into some sense of normalcy where there is no normal anymore and there's no normal to go back to. So, what is the new normal? What is the next vision? What is the next culture? What is the next movement? How do we find purpose in a slower world? I've been on the hustle, in the hustle, as an artist, as a human being, trying to define life on my own terms, trying to be free in a world that cages so many people, trying to be free in my spirit in a world that manipulates and confuses and disrupts people's connection to mind, body, spirit. I've been in this hustle to try to define life in my own way, and it's been beautiful and it's been exhausting. And I've been thinking I need a sabbatical. I just need like a period of time where I can like slow down and like regather. And here we are, and it's a blessing for some. It's much harder for others. We have to be real and remember that a lot of us in this space this morning, we have the privilege to be on Zoom. We have the privilege to take time in our homes. If we own homes or we have a renting situation that's secure, or we can change our work into an online format. There's a lot of privilege, and not that we need to sit in guilt within that privilege, but what do we want to do with that privilege as we reemerge and think about the opportunity that some of us have had to really philosophize and think about the next world without going bankrupt, without losing our homes, without losing our jobs. And I'm sure some people here, don't have it cush, right? Some people here are in that situation where it's like, how am I going to pay the rent next month? What am I going to do for work this summer if things don't change? Or what am I going to do for work in May? I myself lost about $10,000 worth of gigs this spring, with it being National Poetry Month, Semana Chicana, Semana Primavera celebrations, everybody just kind of coming out of winter, end of school year celebrations, summer festivals and everything like that. So not to say that everybody here has it ultra privileged, but if we're here in a creative morning experience on Zoom, there is some collective relative privilege, and it's an opportunity to think about what we do with that as we reemerge. This moment of slowing down, it's harder for some of us who are used to really pushing and grinding and wanting to stay busy. And, I challenge us to think about balancing that urge with the message that we're getting to slow down. There's literally nowhere to go. There's no one to impress. We're looking at ghost towns, throughout the United States and throughout the world. And as uncomfortable as that is, we must respond to the earth and the universe's prompt to slow down, and to do so personally, even for us go-getters, us creators, us hustlers. Why did this happen? Where did this come from? Who did this? What mistake was made? Or, what animal transferred this to people? Why did this happen? What precautions weren't taken? Like at this point, it is what it is. We're here. And on a broader philosophical and spiritual level, I personally believe that this is a command from the earth. This is a collective prompt to slow down, to go within, and to imagine what kind of world we want to live in, this future world where there will be different rules, there will be different battlegrounds, there will be different expectations. So in social life, as we reemerge, what are 5 commitments we can each make to how we want to treat other people, how we want to engage with other people, how we want to check some of our biases, some of the ways that we dismiss other human beings on whatever level that may be, whether it's race, gender, class, style, assumptions, etc. In terms of culture, this is disrupting culture. This is very difficult for those of us who are really steeped in a culture, whether that's an ethnic culture, a creative culture. And again, no culture is perfect. A great sense of power for me as a young man was coming into my Chicano identity, and really tapping into a sense of indigeneity, and a sense of connection to the Mexica, who we call the Aztecs, to my bisabuela, my great-grandmother, who was a curandera, who healed my father of asthma when he was a little boy, thinking about traditions that I could reclaim. And also, really understanding that the ancestors don't just live in the past, the ancestors live in the future, because we are them in the present. What kind of world are we creating for the next 7 generations? So trying to tap into the past, but also the future, and to take hold of that power right now in the present. And for as much as I was inspired and moved and really attaching to these movements that I was part of, whether it was the Chicano movement, the hip hop movement, different artistic and socio-political movements. I had to take a really hard look at the different cultures I was part of and the myths about the histories and the reality that we've lived a pretty brutal history as people, all of us, regardless of what our roots are, what our histories are, what our cultures are. And even now, for as dope as a lot of these scenes and cultures are, we diminish people, we dismiss people, we disrespect people. Many of us are unwilling gatekeepers, right? We don't really recognize to the extent that we are gatekeeping in some of our scenes, in some of our movements, and the ways that we minimize other folks. So it's an opportunity to think about what we want to do with our cultures, what we want to do with our scenes, how we might want to make them more inclusive, how we want to make them more human, more fun, more interesting as we reemerge. Economically, what kind of world do we want to live in? What are we ready to demand, especially for those of us who have the privilege to redesign some of these systems, to redesign the workplace, to redesign what we expect of our employees and colleagues. Personally, what kind of sacrifices are we willing to make? What kind of joy are we ready to claim? What kind of changes are we ready to make in our personal lives in order to really take hold of this opportunity that we have to live, to breathe, to be? The personal is political. So whatever we're ready to contribute to demand, to claim for ourselves personally, that's a political statement. And what are we ready to fight for? What are we ready to contribute? What are we really ready to build in this election year? So I want to take a moment here towards the end of this talk, before we get into Q&A, before I go into my conclusion, to claim a collective moment of power. One of my favorite spoken word pieces, which is more of a declaration. I call it We Declare. And I'm not going to ask you to unmute your mics. I actually want y'all to just say this for yourself in your own space, because we are on personal assignments. We are on personal journeys. It is a collective experience. But in your own home, in your own voice, in your own space, just repeat after me. Say this with me. We declare. We declare. We declare that we are human beings. We declare that we have always been human beings.
We declare that we have always been human beings.
We declare our right to human rights.
We declare our right to human rights.
Universal rights.
Universal rights.
Priests, priestesses, warriors, philosophers, teachers and students, elders and newborns, we declare. We declare our place here, above all, as spiritual entities, with the right to exist without question. We declare all declarations and all rights to make all declarations as we see fit, now and always, for the betterment and fulfillment of all promises of humanity, past, present, and future. We declare. Thank you. I see you doing the shake, Mariah. Thank y'all. Some of y'all unmuted to chime in. No worries. Thank you. And for everybody who said it, in your own space, thank you. And if you just listened and took it in, that's cool too. But it's a time of declarations. So how are we taking care of ourselves? In our physical health. How are we taking care of our mental health? How are we taking care of our emotional health, our spiritual health, our creative health, our interpersonal relations right now? What can we do to fortify and strengthen and celebrate our interpersonal relations during this time of social distancing? Are we getting enough rest? Are we listening to the earth's message to slow down, to breathe, to check in with our breath and honor that sacred gift? Are we being productive? Many of us are. It's a different struggle for different people. A lot of us maybe are being too productive in this time. But in terms of our core commitments, are we holding true to those? Are we checking ourselves on our substance abuse? Not to say we shouldn't enjoy a drink or a joint or whatever it may be, but are we making sure that we are keeping our minds, our bodies, our spirits strong to do what we got to do to get through this time and to reemerge in an empowered way where we're really ready to do what we got to do to begin to rebuild, and not just to rebuild what was old, but to rebuild what is new? Are we taking meaningful risks? Are we ready to take meaningful, healthy risks? So what is our responsibility? What is the source of our responsibility? How do we know? I believe there are original instructions within each of us that cut through the noise if you let it. And I believe that art plays a critical role in these original instructions. So what is the role of art and creativity in the construction of the next world? Art is a civil right. Art is a human right. It's a gateway to the spirit. Art is what makes us human. And while a lot of our art may be inspired by other living beings, other creatures, plants, the natural world, landscapes, our capacity to create art is beyond any other living being. Our capacity to design our worlds, to play with different elements, to work with different aesthetics, it is beyond any other living creature. And so clearly, other than Mother Earth, right? So clearly we are meant to create. Another world is possible. And there's a reason for the powers that be always coming for the artists, always trying to shut the arts down, trying to kill our creative spaces, trying to take art out of schools. And people who wish to silence us, people who wish to cage us, to imprison our freedom. It's our creativity that they fear. Art is power. Art is a civil right. Our words, our beats, our forms, our lines, our colors, our modes of production. These are clues. These are the original instructions. And it is our responsibility to create. And so it's about creating these beautiful things. It's about creating these moving things. It's about making people laugh. It's about giving people something to pass the time. It's about entertainment. It's about just giving people something pretty to look at. But it's beyond all of that. It's about our purpose here. And if you practice creativity, you know how to build worlds. You know how to change your life. You know how to redesign your home, your family structure, your relationships. You know how to build community in a healthy way. And even when it crumbles on you, even when things change and rearrange within a community that you worked hard to create, as long as you're creative, there's always new people to build with. There's always a new scene. There's always a new space. So I believe that now more than ever, those of us who live this creative life, who are committed to this creative world, we think now more than ever about how we can extend and expand this art, and in our immersive artistic mentalities, how do we immerse more people? the people who aren't usually in our spaces. One of the greatest joys for me in curating, creating, performing live in public space with the people is when I see people from different scenes. Like, to me, the mark of a really good event where I've done what I'm supposed to do is when there are people from different scenes who are looking at each other like, I don't know who that is. Who's that? Wow, I've never seen these people, because we get used to seeing the same people in our spaces. So as we reemerge, as we create the next creative worlds, what are our commitments? What is possible if we think outside the box, and then outside the box that box is in, and then outside the box that box is in, to really imagine creating immersive worlds that engage new people, more people, that we prompt and share this gift of creativity, because that's the only way we're going to create the next worlds that are more livable. I believe that in many ways, this fantastical planet that we live on, this blue planet, this blue dream, has fired a warning shot. It could get a lot worse. And we have an opportunity to make it a lot better. So the role of radical imagination in our paths forward is essential. The word radical is formed from the Latin adjective radicalis, which simply meant of or relating to the root. Our creativity is our root, and it's time to build new networks underground and to rise those up and create another dimension, another possibility that is more livable for our people and our planet. Thank you.
Unmute us.
Awesome.
Oh,
Thank you.
I don't know.
Great. Guys.